Hi, we are back with another episode, Gender Decoded. Let's get it started.
Catchy. Well, that's kind of how I picture the International Mathematical Olympiad, the IMO.
It's definitely intense.
So in this deep dive, we're going to tackle, the whole gender representation thing at the IMO. We're talking about data all the way from 1960 to 2020.
Yeah, we're going deep. 6 decades of data.
A pretty solid historical view. Should give us a really good insight into this whole thing. And by the way, this deep dive today, yeah, it's all for you. We see those comments. We hear you. This one's been requested a lot.
Been looking forward to digging into this.
Okay, so imagine, right, the Olympics, but for, math geniuses. That's the International Mathematical Olympiad.
Yeah.
Super prestigious, right? Sort of the brightest young minds going head-to-head. But, instead of crowning champions today, we're digging into something even cooler. At least I think so.
Okay.
Who actually gets to compete in this whole math showdown in the first place?
Interesting.
And specifically, we're zeroing in on the ladies, the female participation in this whole thing. So give me the lowdown. What's the big picture? Are we seeing more girls stepping up to, this mathematical plate?
Well, the good news is yes, yeah. Female participation at the IMO, it's been on the rise.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, and it's not just, a blip on the radar. It's a trend. We've been tracking this, and it actually shows a real change, a positive change.
That is really good to hear. But you have to wonder then, what's fueling this whole positive upswing?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question, right? And it's not like a one-answer kind of deal. Lots of things could be playing a role here. But one thing that really pops out from, digging into the research is how well Eastern European countries are doing.
Mm-hmm.
They're really killing it, way ahead of other places in supporting their female math Olympians.
Now, that is super interesting. Any clues, any insights into what's giving them this edge in this area?
It's something, we need to look into more. But one thought out there, and tell me what you think about this, is that maybe it's the way they focus on specialized math education, early on.
Like early training.
Yeah, exactly. What if, think about it, what if we got kids, young girls, excited by these advanced math concepts way earlier?
Yeah.
Could that be, a game changer?
Yeah, it could be a big piece of the puzzle. So I'm totally inspired by, these Eastern European successes.
Yeah.
What can we all learn from this? What can we take and apply, on a larger scale? What else can we be doing to make sure even more girls get involved in the future?
$1 million question, right? Maybe we're aiming at the wrong thing, or at least too narrow a target. Instead of just pushing for more faces at the IMO level, like the tippy top, maybe we need to build a love for math way earlier.
Okay.
Think fun games, right? Stuff that gets your hands dirty, activities. And then, of course, we need those role models, women who make math exciting, relatable for these young girls. We got to smash that stereotype that math is a boys' subject.
Yes, 100%. It's about building that passion long before the IMO even enters the picture. We want a world where any kid, any girl with the smarts and the interest, they feel like they can totally dive into math, right? No barrier.
Absolutely.
Okay, so wrapping it up here, big takeaway, we are seeing some good progress. More girls in the IMO. Shout out to Eastern Europe for really leading the charge there. But, and there's always a but, we still have work to do.
Right, always.
But that leads to the thing I really want you all listening to ponder. Does upping those female numbers in these elite competitions, does that actually move the needle on the bigger issue here? Gender equity in STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, the whole shebang.
It's a big question.
Huge? Or are these competitions just one piece, right, of a much bigger, way more complex puzzle?
Lots to think about.
Lots to think about, and that is exactly what we're going to leave you with. From what I gathered, historically it's been a pretty male-dominated field, right?
Right.
Way more guys involved.
Yeah, for sure. If you look at the data, particularly, say, the 70s and 90s, those decades saw a huge surge in male participation.
The 70s and 90s. That makes me think about, like, social change happening, even educational policies shifting. Could that have played a role?
You hit the nail on the head. Researchers found that during that time, fewer women were entering college-level math programs. Like, the pipeline itself was already constricted. And then you factor in societal expectations.
Right. Were girls even encouraged to pursue advanced math the same way we encouraged boys back then?
Exactly. And often, the answer was, sadly, no. So those historical realities really echo in the data.
It's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it, how these things all connect?
Totally. And educational policies back then were all over the map, globally speaking, making access and opportunity vastly different depending on where you were in the world. Who knows how many brilliant minds we might have missed out on?
Right. It really makes you think, okay, so we've got this male-dominated thing happening early on, but then things start to shift in the 90s. It's almost like we see a counter-trend emerging, right?
Yeah. Female participation starts to climb. And it's not random. It's the 90s. This is when we start to see a bigger push for STEM fields to be more inclusive, programs encouraging girls specifically in math, celebrating their achievements, and critically, we started seeing more female role models, showing girls, hey, this is possible.
It's pretty cool how the data paints such a clear picture of those societal shifts. So where does that leave us today? Did things just keep getting better?
Well, the good news is things are changing. Over the last decade alone, female participation has shot up by 70%. That's huge. But there's still a gap.
70%. That's insane progress. You'd almost think we are on track for things to even out, but it sounds like we're not quite there yet.
Not quite, no. And that's important to acknowledge. So someone listening might be thinking, okay, stats are interesting, but what's the big deal? Well, imagine being a young girl. You're amazing at math, but you hesitate to really go for it.
Maybe because you don't see a lot of people who look like you doing it.
Exactly. Or maybe there are these subtle cues around you, making you question if it's the right path. This data forces us to look at those barriers head on.
It's about making sure everyone, girl or boy, has a real shot at being their best, especially in a field as important as mathematics.
Absolutely. And it's working, but it needs continued focus, continued effort. It can't just stop.
So we're getting there, but the journey's not over, and it makes you wonder, how much of this is a reflection of how we as a society still view women in math.
Right. And if we want to truly level the playing field, what needs to change? How do we build an environment where anyone, regardless of gender, who's passionate about math can thrive? I think those are some really important questions we all need to be asking ourselves.
Food for thought. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive, but the conversation definitely doesn't end here. Keep those amazing comments and questions coming. We love hearing from you. Until next time.